Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. In the past few years, many people have been referring to the United States of America as a democracy. And the phrase democracy is often attributed to the United States. However, the United States is not a democracy, nor has it ever been. Now, this may be a shock to some, especially in our times now, specifically because many people, including those who know better, continue to say that we are a democracy, knowing very well that we are not. Then what are we? What is the United States if not a democracy? Well, it's simple. We are what is known as a representative republic. And to discuss both of these systems, we need to take a step back to ancient Europe. 508 BC, Athens. Cleisthenes Eponymus Archon, or High Magistrate of the city of Athens in Greece. Athens, named for the Greek goddess of wisdom, is a seat of philosophy and new ideas of the era. Cleisthenes proposes a new idea to the people of Athens. No more single rulers, kings, or councils. They want to try a new form of self-governing, democracy. The people will vote on each important legislation and situation facing the people of Athens. This would lead to the foundations of the Athenian Golden Age. Being a commerce power, the city-state rose to hold significant power, and they would democratically elect a defender of the city who would lead the city in times of war and conflict. Athens would remain a free direct democracy until 300 BC, when they would become a vassal state of the Macedonian Empire. Later, it would fall into the control of the Roman Republic in 86 BC. This now takes us into our second form, and that is the idea of a republic. Now, a republic is significantly different than the direct democracy of Athens. The Roman Republic was founded in 509 BC by Lucius Junius Brutus and Lucius Tarquinius Collatinus, after they helped overthrow the last king of Rome. The way the republic would be set up in three councils: the Senate, which would be made up of the patricians, the rich and powerful citizens of Rome. Second would be the Comita Tributa, or the tribal assembly. This is where the plebeians, the commoners of Rome, and the patricians would work together for the betterment of Rome. Then the third assembly would be Concilium Plebis, or the plebeian council. This will be where the plebeians will meet and discuss the commoners' plight to be brought to the upper houses. At the top of the government, we will have two consuls who would be elected on and off. To make the position easier to understand, imagine having two presidents. The point is to curtail corruption into one person's hand. The way the people would be elected to the government, it would be divided by districts. The district would elect a representative, and that is who served. The republic would exist until 27 BC, when Gaius Octavian would, after being given control from the Senate, declare himself Caesar Augustus and establish the Roman Empire. Now, that was a long way to get to this point of discussing where these two systems came from: the Republic from Rome and the democracy from Greece. In the closing days of the American Revolution, the founders actually didn't want either of these systems. In fact, they were concerned both systems would lead to some form of destruction. But it was universally agreed by the representatives of the 13 states some form of a republic would be needed, and they decided to adapt a new form of government based in the very fabric of North America. The Confederation form of government was one used by the native Iroquois of the Northeast America. It united multiple tribes into one confederation of tribes that would unite together in times of conflict. So using that example, the Continental Congress created the Articles of Confederation. in a way making each state their own sovereign nation with currency and state constitutions. But they would be united as the United States of America through a considerably significantly weak federal government. But by doing this, you had a federal government who, to ratify any treaties, set any tariffs, or make any federal decisions, everything had to be controlled by ratifications of all the states. In 1787, after 6 years of dysfunction of the Articles of Confederation, a federal convention was called for in Philadelphia to discuss amending or perhaps even creating a new form of government. At this convention, you will see George Washington, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, and Alexander Hamilton among the members. After a few months, a new document would be created, and it would be ratified by the states on June 1st, 1788, and would remove the Articles of Confederation, and now the law of the land would be the United States Constitution. The document is revolutionary, incorporating English common law, Spanish law, French law, and aspects of Enlightenment philosophy to create a new structure of government, a federal system. The state constitutions will remain the laws of each state, and no law created by the federal government will be allowed to trump those of the individual states. The idea is that the federal government is a partner to the states, not a superior or a subordinate, and vice versa. This is the first time we will see this tested. A republic-style government is chosen. The United States legislature, judiciary, and executive branches will hold equal powers to be sure one side does not become tyrannical over the others. It will also create a head of state and head of government in that of the President of the United States. Up until now, most countries, the position has either been held by a king or split, with the king being head of state and a prime minister or chancellor being head of government. The legislature will be made up of upper house and lower house. As part of a compromise, the upper house will be called the United States Senate, and the lower house will be the United States House of Representatives. The Senate will not be elected by the people originally. It was two representatives picked by the states. The Senate was to be, in quote, better men, and represent the states in the federal government, so it would have two representatives from each of them. The House of Representatives, however, will take its model from the Romans. Each representative would represent a district in each state based on population and would be elected by the people of that district in order to represent them. Fun fact, I used to work for one of those representatives in those districts, so you can take that one to the bank. Now, I didn't explain how the president is chosen. That is on purpose, because a lot of the people don't understand the process of which the president is chosen. The president is not chosen by a general election, by popular vote like other countries. They are chosen by an organization known as the Electoral College. What is this group? Does this mean we don't actually vote for our president? Why is there a middleman? Well, to be perfectly honest, we do, but we don't vote for our presidents. Only 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, do. The point of Electoral College is simply the idea that the country is not being held hostage by metropolitan areas. So let's take a state like New York, for example, being my home state. New York has 27 districts. Now, each of these districts will vote, and by the Constitution, the vote of these districts should represent them in the national electoral vote. So, let's use the 2020 election as an example. Democrat Joe Biden won 19 districts in the state of New York. Republican Donald Trump won 8 districts in the state of New York. What this means in the old system is New York would be purple, and it would be 19 to the Democrats and 8 to the Republican. This is set so those who do not live in the metropolitan area have their own vote than the cities. However, all except those 2 states I mentioned before now follow what's known as winner takes all. What this means is, in New York, for example, that you have 8 votes for the Republicans, regardless, all 27 votes will go to the Democrat. Now, it seems like a complex system. Why did the founders set this up that way? Well, a lot of it does have to do with small populations of the time. States like New York and Virginia dominated over states like Connecticut and Georgia population-wise. So going back to this idea of republic, the founders said, allow the election of those who vote for your district's candidate, and that will be who votes for the president. In fact, to this day, all states will have 2 pair of electorates set before the election, Republican and Democrat, just in the situation that one side or the other wins. Now, from there we can talk about the Senate, also changed from the original system. Again, as I said before, the Senate was originally chosen from the states as the upper house. Before the American Revolution, upper houses were usually the branch of government controlled by the aristocracy. For example, in England, they have the House of Lords, which is made up strictly of aristocrats. Now, up until 1913, the Senate was chosen by the state's legislature. This was because, again, the Senate represented the states, not the people. It was the upper house, and de facto was supposed to represent the interest of the states specifically. However, in 1913, the 17th Amendment took that right away from the states, and from then on, the Senate would be selected by popular vote of each state. The difference between a republic and democracy is, to be honest, the people as a whole do not have a vote in a republic, whereas in a democracy, the people are much more proactive in the government. And the United States is a representative republic. So, are democracies bad? No, not necessarily. It's more the idea that you will be stuck in a never-ending vote, so to speak, but also leaves room for corruption. Most countries where dictatorships have taken over were where it was a result of a democracy. The first French Republic, though the name is Republic, was in fact a democracy, one in which indecision caused friction and so much debate that it in fact almost caused the destruction of the very French Republic. But it would also directly lead to the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte and the First French Empire. The Kerensky government following the fall of the Tsars in 1917 in Russia is another example. It was a democracy that in the last moments they tried to correct towards a republic. But their weakness and infighting would lead to delays and set the road for Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks to found the Soviet Union. Now, republics aren't perfect either, by any standard. The Third French Empire would fall victim to another Bonaparte, but unlike his uncle, he would be elected president in a system very similar to the American system. And when he was posed to lose an election, he took over France as Napoleon III. Or, a very well-known one, Adolf Hitler and his National Socialists seizing Germany and the Weimar Republic through complete legal grounds. But this isn't about those nations. This is about the United States, which is now approaching its 250 years of life. And to be honest, the U.S. has faced its trials. It has been invaded by the British. It fought a bloody civil war. And then after coming to the rescue of the old world in the 20th century twice, it rose to the might of a global superpower. Now, there can be debates, and as everyone knows, I do not partake in politics on this channel. It is not what this channel is for. So when I say we as a country have risen above, the United States Republic is still alive and well, but famously, we will end this with an interaction Benjamin Franklin had at the closing days of the Constitutional Convention. A woman approached Dr. Franklin and said, "Well, Dr. Franklin, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy?" Franklin looked at the woman and said, "A republic, if you can keep it." And that is the charge Benjamin Franklin gave to each and every citizen of the United States.